Hi, my name is Gerhard Schwartner and welcome to Selling Power TV. Today we have the great pleasure of meeting with Alyssa Mervyn, and she is Vice President of Sales for North America for LinkedIn. Welcome, Alyssa.
Thanks, Gerhard. It's great to meet you. It's great to be here today.
So you have just completed a State of Sales survey. Can you give us the highlights?
Sure, we did. We just completed a survey of over 10,000 sellers and buyers across the globe. And, I guess no surprise that some of the findings that we shared in the report are pretty new and different compared to what they would have been just a few months ago. In fact, we had to republish and redo the study because of COVID and the environment that we're all living in. And a couple of key takeaways, number one, technology is here to stay and everyone's having to adapt. 77% of sellers are now having to engage with some sort of technology in order to be successful. Number two is we're seeing companies invest even more because of this in sales tech. We're seeing on average, companies are already to have about 10 sales technology tools in their stack, planning to add more. But one of the biggest question marks for a lot of them is how do we integrate it into our selling process? A third is buyer trust is more important than ever in an environment like this where we can't get together face to face. Trying to figure out how we can convey that trust and build trust remotely is an important and challenging hurdle. And so those are a few of the quick takeaways that I'll share, but there's a lot more that we can dig into.
Everybody is looking for the next normal, but the next normal doesn't exist. There's no normal anymore. Everything is sort of in a mode that is very unpredictable, and I think that salespeople need to accept that and adapt to it. So, how has the LinkedIn sales force adapted to the crisis?
We turned our sales force into really customer success, and we said, this is, at the beginning, it wasn't appropriate to be selling to customers and reaching out to prospect. And so we said, everyone needs to figure out how do we help customers get the most out of what they already have. And for those that we can help in other ways, let's be there to help them. As we started to see which customers were going to be able to navigate through the pandemic, some customers are still in crisis mode, some have lost their businesses, and others are thriving. And so we started to bucket our customers into different segments and understand what's the appropriate behavior and the appropriate kind of outreach based on where they are and how we can help them.
So, Alyssa, you're a Silicon Valley company, and when I read the press and how Silicon Valley companies are adapting, Salesforce.com has done a recent research of a survey of their own people and found that 36% of employees suffered mental health issues. Do you find similar things, that the stress is getting to salespeople?
This has always been a stressful profession, even in good times. And when you add to that the isolation that people feel, whether they're alone working from their apartment somewhere around the globe or even in a crowded family home, there is real isolation. And you add to that the pressure, the uncertainty, as budgets are frozen, as companies are trying to figure out what this new normal looks like. And I think this idea of being able to help our reps create some boundaries for themselves, also being there to support them emotionally and not just focusing on quotas and outcomes. We have to be able to do this to help all of us get through the uncertainty that's ahead of us and that we're living through right now.
So what does that support look like if you're a LinkedIn salesperson right now?
One is that our managers really focus on the person first. So I think they're doing an incredible job of just reaching out and checking in and making the right adjustments. We've given our employees a lot of flexibility if they need to maybe work in some of the mornings instead of the afternoons or vice versa. And then we've also provided some accommodations for families that maybe are being caretakers for either elderly parents or people in their family that have been impacted by COVID, or that have children working from home and they no longer have childcare. So we're really trying to do our best to help our employees wherever they are and give them a little breathing room to take care of their personal lives. Because if you don't do that, you're certainly not going to have a happy or productive sales professional on the other side of this.
So what I'm hearing is that as a sales leader, you need to lead with empathy and address the human element first.
we are people first and we are professionals second. And if we can approach our relationships that way in the workplace, I think we're all in better shape because of it.
What I like about LinkedIn also is that you create a lot of good content and help up level salespeople to aspire to higher levels of professionalism. Can you tell us a little bit about the content that you create and what's the philosophy behind that?
Yes, it's become an incredible platform for content across all disciplines and all functions. And so individuals can create, post their own original content, or you can take a thought leadership piece or white paper from a publication and be able to share that and add your own 2 cents about why it's important for your industry peers to be aware of. And so there's a whole variety of content that's being created in addition to things like the LinkedIn learning courses and others that are, some original content that we're publishing.
Can you share a little bit with the leaders that are concerned with Black Lives Matter, how LinkedIn is addressing the issue, or what kind of conversations you have had, and what action steps you're following?
As leaders ourselves, we're addressing it with our teams, and then perhaps also from a platform perspective. From an internal perspective, we've had some really powerful conversations in town halls, and this is such an important and expansive topic, and an important part for us as leaders is to take stock of where we are and our own bias and our own experiences, and then to also create space to have conversations about it. And so, I think every part of our organization has really invested deeply in getting uncomfortable with an important topic. And, it's not something we're going to solve overnight. And I think it's going to continue to have to be a conversation that we're willing to get really uncomfortable with, to be able to talk about what's working, what's not, and how are we getting in our own way. And, one thing that we're focused on is, making sure we have the right representation in our leadership ranks and throughout the company. And so that's continued to be a really big focus. And, I think even more important in a time like this.
So final question, Alyssa, how do you keep yourself in good shape physically and mentally so you can be the resilient leader that we all need today?
Well, isn't that the question of the day? It's, I think every day it's a challenge to figure that out for yourself. I have a few practices that I'm really trying to get better. I've sort of recommitted to myself, waking up and working out for me is a really important one. I find that I do get a bit exhausted with, being in meetings back to back all day. And so to the extent I can get outside and do walking meetings, connecting personally, I think really just making sure that we're able to connect with our teams, like we talked about on that personal level, before we dive into business. And, if we're having a bad day, just say it, just let it out. And, sometimes you just have to start with, I'm having a crummy day. Let's just start there before we dive in, because I can't even be there for you in my best way if I haven't just put it out there. So I think part of it's being real and, doing those practices that just keep our energy up and that keep that connection up. I think if I focus on all the things that I didn't have control of right now, I would certainly feel a bit crazy, but it's been helpful to just figure out, what's in my sphere of influence where I can help. And that gives me a lot of grounding.
Thank you so much. For anybody who wants to learn more about LinkedIn, go to linkedin.com and set up your profile.